Folks, welcome to an all new episode of So Bad It's Good with Ryan Bailey. This is your pal Ryan, and this is your Thursday episode. How is everybody doing? I took Wednesday off. I usually take one day off during the week because we added the OC recap on Saturdays now. But at the same time, there's so many episodes of So Bad It's Good right now that there's always something. If you need something, just scroll down. There's tons of episodes. But I'm glad you're here today with me. How was your Wednesday? Is your Thursday going good so far? I hope so. Man, what a week it's been so far. It has just been, once we get to this point, it is just a tractor beam of busyness. I did Jeff Lewis this morning with Kristen Takeman. I think I was talking about this on the Patreon the other day, or maybe the main feed. And of course from Roni. And it's interesting because the first hour, Jeff was in with Monica Casey and Tom Arnold, and me and Kristen Takeman are in the green room. And I met Kristen Takeman briefly once at BravoCon. So I got to spend an hour with her in the green room where you kind of watch and listen to the show. And it was really funny. It was really nice to talk to her. I had a really good time with her. And she revealed something on Jeff Lewis's show. If you don't subscribe to Sirius, I'll reveal it right now. I was slack-jawed, you guys, because we're talking, and I guess earlier in the week on Jeff Lewis's show, he said he used to date somebody that was had like a foot fetish for tickling, like really like to tickle feet. And I'm not a foot. I mean, feet are feet. I like to put some Old Navy shoes on them, but other than that, like there's no kind of, I'm not like woo feet. But he was dating somebody that was like woo feet, and Kristen had seen this or heard this and was like, oh yeah, that's crazy about the feet thing from earlier in the week. I'm like, yeah. And she's like, I have a foot website. And I was like, wait, what? And I was like, oh, do you mean Wiki Feet? Because if you guys don't know at home, there is a thing called Wiki Feet. And they'll literally put celebrities on there and people will rate their feet. Like this foot, it's like a whole cottage industry of people that love feet. And by the way, Jax Taylor, which we'll talk about in a second, there's some Jax news updates. He loves feet. He's been on the record as loving feet. This is not a hidden proclivity of his. He loves feet. But Kristen Digman was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, you're on WikiFeet. And she's like, well, I am, but I also have a foot website. And I was like, what? And she explained it to me. And I was within like 20 minutes of like a conversation, the first conversation I've ever had with Kristen Takeman. And she says, yeah, well, I got perfect scores on WikiFeet, but then there was like a couple people in my DMs and they were just so nice and they were wanting pictures of my feet. And I decided I should maybe start a website. And I was like, is it popular? And she's like, no, nobody signed up. I just started it recently. And she did, there's a website. I'm not promoting her, I swear, but it's just so fascinating. It's called feetfinder.com. Shout out feetfinder.com. Wait, here's the free plug you've been looking for. No. And she made a profile under feetfinder.com and she, she takes pictures and videos of her feet. And she's really proud of like certain ones of the videos. So that got brought up on the second hour. But I was like, all right, this is why housewives, they should be celebrated. There is such a level of camp and just things that just you wouldn't expect. Like, I don't know. I don't know how many people out there have like Wiki Feet accounts or Feet Finder accounts. And then you're like, I just wouldn't have thought in a million years, Kristen, and she was so innocent about it. And she was like, well, yeah, there's this one guy that's so nice in my DMs. And I did send him a free one. And then I thought, well, maybe I should. And I'm like, you're sending free feet pics in your Instagram DMs? I was like, oh my God, no, do not send. I don't care how nice they are. No. So it was great to catch up with Kristen Takeman. That was something that I didn't plan on hearing. Then I had a bunch of doctor appointments today, which is never fun. And that took way too long. And this doctor's office was in Westwood, and it was like 40 minutes to get there and 45 minutes to get back, which is, I remember one of the only good things about the pandemic was just that Los Angeles traffic completely went away. I mean, we weren't supposed to be driving, and that's the reason why. But sometimes when you're in the midst of traffic in Los Angeles, you're just like, It's it's crazy to look back fondly on anything regarding the pandemic, but sometimes your brain will, like, lie to you and be like, "God, man, pandemic, we had it so good back then." You just like just traffic. So, today's episode, it's a little bit of a hodgepodge, a little bit of a mix and match, which I love. We're going to do a little mini pop culture roundup here at first, talk about a bunch of entertainment and pop culture and reality stories. And then we have an interview I did last week with this gentleman that I love. He's a documentarian, and I was sent his film that is going to air in movie theaters or screen in movie theaters in October. Um, and it's called Daytime Revolution. And the filmmaker, he was just great, and he's been involved in so many amazing projects through the years. I was going over his IMDb page, and it just littered with amazing, amazing projects. The filmmaker's name is Eric Nelson, and like I said, the documentary is called Daytime Revolution, and it's all about John Lennon and Yoko Ono. The year was 1972. And they took over the Mike Douglas show. And I was not that familiar with the Mike Douglas show. And I love studying hosts and television. And I always read about the Mike Douglas show or saw little clips, but I never got really like super digging around until this documentary. And now I'm kind of fascinated with this guy. But he had like over 40 million viewers a week. And if you think about that in today's numbers, like let's just take a Real Housewives show, right? And this is probably a bad example because it's getting kind of lower ratings. Is Real Housewives of Salt Lake City last week got like a 0.367 for their that night, like for the Tuesday or for the Wednesday night airing of Salt Lake City, which means kind of roughly 367,000 viewers, right? And that doesn't take into account streaming and 7 day and when people catch up to it because we watch TV differently now. But back then, there was only a handful of stations. We didn't have cable yet. We didn't have our MTV yet. And so this daytime talk show, which was insanely popular, John Lennon and Yoko Ono got to take it over for 5 days. And this documentary follows the entire 5 days and shows all of the original footage from the Mike Douglas show. And it was kind of revolutionary for the time. And really, it's very fitting now for the times that we live in, which is what I love about media in general, is that even though the landscape was completely different in terms of media, there are so many things that are still so prescient for today. And remember, I put timestamps in here. So if you want to skip right to that interview and not hear these pop culture goofy stories, I totally get it because I really respect this documentarian's work. And so, if you're here for the pop culture reality stuff, amazing. But I always say, hey, give this other stuff a chance or a shot. And it's something that I love to learn about new things. And I think you guys are a lot like me, and you've proven to be in the past. So I watched this, and I was really fascinated with this, and I kind of was just daydreaming. And you have to know, I grew up in a household where my dad, like so many parents out there, revered the Beatles. I still will buy my dad books on the Beatles. Any new Beatles book comes out, I'll usually buy it for my dad. And he's read every Beatle thing out there. He's watched every Beatles thing out there. And I will say, that's what I always tell you guys about sharing recommendations. Sharing music recommendations, turning people onto TV shows, movies, books. It's so important because my dad having those albums, or then it eventually was into CDs, it shaped me. It shaped my music taste. And I think sometimes the Beatles, most of the time, they are totally given their due, but sometimes they're written off because they were so insanely popular. But if you listen to that band's discography before they broke up and just the leaps they made sonically, the way they were pushing music forward. And that's another fascinating thing that there's tons of documentaries on, of like when Sergeant Pepper's hit that out, when that album hit, it landed like a bomb, and they were competing with like the Beach Boys with Pet Sounds and Brian Wilson, and they were kind of outdoing each other and trying to out music each other. And the Beatles, every album up until when they broke up, every album, even if they thought it was shite, it was something incredible. And for me, it was like listening to that stuff as a kid. I just got so into it. And then when they broke up, all four of those guys went their separate ways. And, obviously Paul McCartney went to the band Wings, and John Lennon. You had the John and Yoko stuff, but you also had the John Lennon solo albums, and George Harrison, All Things Must Pass, Ringo doing his Ringo thing. And they all had this really incredibly rich solo careers as well, until unfortunately it ended for John Lennon when he was assassinated in the early 80s by Mark David Chapman, which is just horrific, right? But this is just so amazing to see John Lennon happy, peppy, as the director says. He was not on drugs he was not on like the hard drugs. Who knows what else he was on? But you get to see him, and you get to see him as this living, breathing, funny thing. There are these kind of musical moments in this where he gets to sing with like Chuck Berry. He sings Imagine with his band. And yeah, Yoko sings with him a couple times too. But it just gives you a completely different picture, and also a different picture of their relationship, because as pop culture historians, as we all are, we know John and Yoko, a lot of the times now, that relationship, or it was 20 years ago, where people would make those jokes about Yoko. Uh-oh, is she going to come in and, is somebody going to break up the band like Yoko? There was a lot of those jokes going around. And you get to kind of see them, and that they definitely had a chemistry and a very special relationship. Um, but also this documentary, it speaks to our turbulent present, and it's this time capsule reminding us of art's power to break down barriers, and the bravery of these two artists, who always, like, they never took the easy way out. They never took the easy way out, and they fought very hard for this vision that they had of a better world. And I thought that was, even if it was something that they were villainized for at times, they believed in it. And I just think this documentary was just really kind of, it really shows a time and place. And I was like a kid in a candy store, because I love, and there's something so romantic to think about a time before all of this, before podcasts existed, before Bravo existed, before Us Weekly existed, before so many things. And you would think that the life that life would be simpler, right? But we see that there were issues back then, and people fighting for things. We were embroiled in the Vietnam War. Richard Nixon was there. All of these moments in history, and in some ways it's frightening, because you're like, oh, it seems like there's always something. And in some ways it's comforting, because you're like, okay, there's always something, maybe these times aren't as turbulent, but they kind of are. But it also shows you that art can be a healer, and can present a better vision of the world, of people fighting for something more. So anyways, we have Eric Nelson here with us, and we'll get to that interview after all of these pop culture stories. But like I said, timestamp is there. Use it. It is your friend if you want to skip ahead and listen to that. But also, I'll put the information in there, but they're opening this film in like all these major markets. And I recommend people, I want to see this in a movie theater, because I got to watch it on my laptop, which is a way different and less exciting way than going into the movie theaters. If you've been listening to the show for a while, I've always romanticized movie theaters, and it's something that I do not want to see go away, that movie theater experience. And I have to remind myself to force myself to go to the movie theaters, because it's so easy to watch from home. But you sometimes want to watch things with an audience and kind of get that feeling that we're all in it together. But it's going to screen October 9th, which it's John Lennon's birthday, which I think is a very perfect time to release this film, October 9th. So it's Daytime Revolution. And let's start talking about some other things before we get to that, okay? Okay, let's get into a little Bravo. Real Housewives of Salt Lake City recap will be out on Friday. The OC recap, like I said, will be out on Saturday. I watched Salt Lake tonight, and I also got to watch this week's OC. And tonight, you got to watch OC. It's another, and the juxtaposition of Salt Lake and OC. I said this, I think, on one of the recaps last week, but it really holds true. Is that Salt Lake City has like stakes and there's real things happening, but it's such a degree of ridiculousness and camp. Like tonight, Mary Cosby said her dad might have been involved, like in knowing that Jeffrey Dahmer was up to no good, and also had some interesting things to say about tampons. And I'm like, wow, this is TV. I mean, but it's true. It's like a John Waters, David Lynch kind of moment where it is, you can't help but laugh out loud. But OC, on the other hand, there's these ridiculous moments, but I would never classify it as camp because you realize how much insane pain is involved. Tamara accused Ryan, brought up the FBI last week, and it's a to be continued episode. So we pick it right back up on tonight's episode where we left off. But there's a couple things, and stay tuned for the last 5 minutes. It gets wild. I said at one point, "Oh no, oh no, oh." When you hear me say "oh no" out loud, I'm usually pretty quiet and silent when I watch these things, but sometimes I did it in Love Is Blind. The new season just got released on Netflix on Wednesday, so a bunch of episodes are out. But there's an episode where I said "oh no" when I was watching the screeners, and I was like, "Oh God!" It takes a lot for me to get that, and when I do it, I've like really been pushed to a brink. So you'll probably guess the moment where I say, "oh no," on tonight's OC. But I also say that because tonight I am going to support my buddy Doug Buden from the Jeff Lewis Show, who is hosting. He is the MC for Shannon and Vicky Live. That's right. Shannon Medore and Vicky Gunvalson Live. I will be at the Irvine show tonight. Hopefully I will. That's the plan. And I haven't been this excited to see something live since like my mom took me to see Les Mis when I graduated high school. Like I'm very excited because we've seen clips of it on this season of OC. I'm like, are they going to use the slingshot? Is Adele going to be brought up? I think there's a Q&A. Like I want to ask a question. I mean, can I ask about the Joel Kim Booster stuff from Love Hotel? Shannon's coming off a very intense weekend on top of Tamra. And then I heard from a little birdie that there's going to be some surprise guests that I think are potentially. I mean, we're starting World War III at some point with these ladies. It's getting, and we got confirmation today that this Sunday they will be filming the Orange County reunion in Los Angeles. Shannon Bedore let that slip on an IG live today. I don't know if she said she was like, I don't know if I can say this, but I mean, I'm sure it's not that. But yeah, they're filming the reunion on Sunday. And I just have a feeling something that happens tomorrow night or tonight at that live show is going to rock the boat even further. And I'm going to be there and I'm going to take you guys along with me. So when that Saturday recap, maybe I'll throw in some like initial thoughts when I get home tomorrow night on the Salt Lake recap, but the OC recap, I'll give everything. I'm going to try to get some video. So follow me on Instagram. I'm going to try to get as much as I can so I can take you guys along with me. And I think I'm going to do the meet and greet afterwards and get to hug Shannon and see if Vicky can get me any kind of deal on not home insurance, car insurance, some kind of insurance. I feel like that's the way to Vicky's heart. Just say, hey, can you talk to me about life insurance? That's the way to go with Vicky. So yeah, if anybody's going to the Irvine show, let me know. We can say howdy and scream in delight at whatever tea will be spilled tomorrow night. Oh God, I hate when grown men say tea. That is just so horrific. Yeah, so that's exciting. Okay, you know what? Let's get to. This is interesting too. Have you guys noticed this? And this is just, I'm speaking to the extremely online people right now. There's been a lot of tweeting and deleting and posting and deleting. And what I recommend to you guys, the extremely online, if you see something, I'm not going to say if you see something, say something. If you see something, screenshot it. You got to screenshot it immediately because half the time now I go back to check these things and then it's mysteriously disappeared. It's gone. But your boy did screenshot something before it got deleted tonight. And it kind of involves this next story with one Mr. Jason Couchy. And that, of course, is Jax Taylor's actual name. Now, Jax, this poor guy, why not? Why do I? Isn't that funny how we do that with these people? Oh, this poor guy. Now the guy's richer than I am. He's got so many opportunities. He's fine. But he filed for divorce at the Superior Court of California on, it says September 26th. And this, I'm only seeing this is the actual filed paperwork. And it has across it at number one pod is the little it's like stamped across there, like, so this number one pod number, and it's the number one, not spelled out ONE. They got access to this and posted it. Is so I'm guessing, what is this number one pod? Let me go to Instagram real quick and see if this number one pod, what it is. But they posted this paperwork that Jax filed, or Jason. Number one pod. Okay, let's see what pops up here. Number one pod backup. Oh, wait. There is an Instagram account. One sec. Okay. Wait. Okay. So this Instagram account is number one podcast in the group. Oh, they follow me. Should I follow back? It says the number one podcast in the group is a deep dive into the lives and lies of Jax Taylor and Brittany Cartwright from Bravo's Vanderpump Rules and the Valley. Oh my God. This is a whole podcast just about Jax and Brittany. Oh, and then it has like a link in their link tree to a Reddit thread, a trailer on Spotify, and they have two posts. It says coming soon, but this was March 12th. March 12th. So what month are we in right now? Oh, we're in like October. So March of last year, they were going to start this podcast, and then it never came to be. But then all of a sudden, they posted this divorce paperwork online. There's got to be, by the way, if you're number one podcast, if you're listening, will you DM me or email me at sobaditsgoodwithryanbailey@gmail.com? I want to find out more about what your deal is and what's going on here. It sounds like Jax and Brittany could potentially be your mortal enemies. So, in classic Jason Gauchi fashion, he is representing himself in this divorce. And this is another thing that I'm going to hit myself for, but like, I almost, when I first read this, I was like, that's pretty smart. Save money. Like, I was like, yeah, you don't need to be spending money. Yeah, you're going to get a divorce. You don't spend that money. Don't waste that money. I always get upset when you have to spend money on lawyers because it's so expensive. So I was like, yeah, save the money, Jax. And it puts his address, which I'm not going to read out loud, but he made a couple of oopsies. A couple of missteps here, and he wrote that they were sorry. Sorry. He he wrote that, like, he checked out that he wanted to get a divorce, but that they actually weren't married in the first place. So there was like a little confusion today on the interwebs because he didn't mark it correctly. And he was just like, but he's representing himself. Like he's not good with paperwork. I'm just making so many excuses for him, but he slipped up a lot. And he even had to press release, or somebody had to reach out to, like, I think this is from E! News and People Magazine. This is from Queens of Bravo, that account. It says, Jax Taylor shares conflicting response on if he and Brittany Cartwright were ever legally married. And it says, in Jax Taylor's divorce docs, the Vanderpump Rules alum checked a box confirming that he is married to Brittany Cartwright, as well as a box contending that they were, quote, never legally married. Isn't that the most Jax thing ever, to check one thing and then check the completely opposite thing at the same time? Now, a statement given to People on Wednesday, October 2nd, by the way, the People, the same outlet that does a lot of press releases with Johnny J and Alexis Bellino, says, quote, Jax and Brittany have already long resolved all matters related to custody of Cruz and will continue to work together privately for the best interest of their son, which remains their overriding concern. While Jax made errors in filing out forms that are usually done by trained legal professionals, sorry, those errors will be amended without delay. So don't worry, folks, it's going to be amended. The errors the statement referred to were in Jax's September 26th response to Brittany's August 27th divorce filing, where she requested primary custody of their 3-year-old son, Cruz. In his response, which was obtained and reviewed by People, Jax incorrectly said that he and Brittany were not legally married. The timeline of their relationship was also incorrect on this form. He also checked a box indicating other when it came to determining child support, leading to some confusion. However, in his Wednesday statement, Jax said the couple had previously figured out Cruz's custody arrangements. So, in this as well, it said that Brittany gets full custody of Cruz. And my initial thoughts on that were that this is the way to go. Like, no, all joking aside, all laughing about the mistakes out of the way. Yes, give her primary full custody, because it looks like they probably have worked it out. Brittany has gone on record to say, this man's been a horrible husband, but he's a great father, right? And they do seem to be in agreement of what's best for Cruz. I just recapped the season 1 reunion of Vanderpump Rules on my Patreon, and it does sometimes, it's funny, but it also breaks your heart to think of these people still in this same place where they're making these kind of huge mistakes. I make them myself, but it's really sad / funny / scary when you're like, oh man. And like I said, and I've said all along, that I hope this dude truly is getting the mental health help that he really needs on a daily basis, especially he's coming out of this rehab mental health facility, right? So anyways, Queens of Bravo posted this, and also Brittany commented on E!News' Instagram, said, we are legally married. I'm guessing paperwork is hard for some people. And then did the emoji where one hand is covering the eye and the other one is like, ooh. So it's also, can there be a rule in, like, when we're talking about divorce or death or things like that, can there be a ban on emojis? Like, I don't want to die and then just people go, Ryan Bailey died, and then it's just a bunch of tombstone emojis and then like a little shit thing, like a little poo emoji. Can we please not? Now somebody's going to do it because I said it. But, and then Brittany's mom also commented on this and said, they are married. They are married. Okay. So Jax just jaxed the whole paperwork. Now, the thing that I'm talking about in terms of the delete. So initially this post came out and Jax commented on it, and it said, we were legally married. I checked the wrong box in the papers, ... Fucking relax, ... My God. And then did the emoji with the eyes up like, which what I'm saying, let's not use emojis. This is like real situations. So he wrote that. And then I shit you not, I got back on Instagram like 15 minutes later, the post had been changed, because I went back to look at that Jax comment to see if anybody had like commented on that, or if comments by celebs took that post and made it another post, and the post was gone, and Queens of Bravo put up another post. Queens of Bravo, if any of you guys are listening, can you reach out to me and tell me what happened? I don't want to clog your DMs, but I'm wondering if, like, in my head, Jax reached like somebody reached out to Queens of Bravo and was like, not cool. Take it down. Take it down. And I'm not sure what part they took out. But yeah. Yeah, this Jax comment. We were legally, like, Jax was like on Instagram seeing this Queens of Bravo thing, and he wasn't even tagged on it. Yeah. When you're going through that stuff, and I know none of us ever do this and we all tell each other to do it, but I would just say stay offline. Right. So yeah, the divorce is full steam ahead. It looks like, if we can fill out this paperwork correctly. But I will stand up for Jax. I wish he had filled out that paperwork correctly, but he saved money on legal fees and he got his name in the press. Not that I don't think you want your name in the press for this, but still, it's cool to see. It's fun to see your name sometimes out there in like People magazine. People love you, Jax. Hope everything's good. Brittany really seems to have this inner strength all of a sudden that is very refreshing to see. And I really can't wait to see the Valley. The only thing that scares me is that, we know the Valley wrapped filming a couple of weeks ago, and now so many other things are happening since then. And my desire, or my dream, especially if they're dragging their feet on Vanderpump, is I wish they filmed seasons 2 and 3 consecutively, like back to back, because I feel like you don't want the story to be more out there on social media than it is on the show. And like I've always said with reality TV, that's the toughest thing in 2024 I would imagine these producers have to deal with. Is like how do we cage the excitement on this show and not out there on social media in the comment section. Now, you can't have these casts not do their social media because that's part of their paycheck. But it does sometimes ruin the overall experience because you're like, oh my God, no matter how season 2 of The Valley ends, we are already making these mental checklists in our head of all of these little, or just maybe me because I'm crazy, all of these situations that have happened in the last 3 weeks where we know how this story is continuing from however it ends on season 2. I'm probably thinking about this way too much. Yeah, I am. That's fine. Also, in amazing news, shout out Hulu. You did the right thing finally. It seemed like they were dragging their feet on a season 2 pickup for The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. Well, all is good because season 2 is happening. Mom Talk can survive this. The second season has been greenlit. TMZ reports that sources connected to the docuseries, which has become the streamer's #1 unscripted premiere of the year, tells TMZ the cast begins filming the new season within the next week, with pre-production already well underway in Utah. Now, I'd speculated this on this show already, that they've been filming for the last week. And remember, just because they say cameras go up in this next week does not mean that cameras are not already up. Just that's also another one of those things you learn covering media. They do this with TV, movies, not just reality shows, with everything. They'll be like, this person was just added to the cast of this film. And it's like, no, they were there all along. So we're told, or TMZ is told, that the season 1 stars, including Taylor, Frankie Paul, Demi, Jen Affleck, Jesse, Layla, Macy, Michaela, and Whitney, are all set to return for season 2, despite the growing drama among the group. So I was really nervous that Whitney was not going to say yes to coming back, but it speaks to Whitney's character, and it also speaks to the power of attention, that even though you're considered the villain, the amount of attention and the amount of potential opportunities, I think, would supersede that villain thing and go, you know what? And also ego has to be a huge part of it, of like, well, I'll go into season 2 and show them who I really am because I don't think they got to see it. Like you can only kind of speculate on all of the things going through somebody's mind. Now with Vanderpump Rules, think about it. They had a really good first season and it was popular, but it wasn't insane. So it was real. I mean, it hit and they got a second season, but we live in a different day and age now where everything like this show, Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, has been passed around every form of social media so much through the TikToks, the tweets, the IGs, every podcast they've been on, every TV show that they've done interviews on, they're really out there. So the season 2 pickup is not a surprise, even though I thought they were kind of dragging their feet announcing it. But maybe that's also just so they can make sure that everybody agreed to come back. What they're not telling us in this article is if all the men are coming back as well, including Dakota Mortensen, who is Taylor Frankie Paul, who, they just had a baby a while back. And they said a couple weeks ago that they're going through a very challenging time in their relationship. People have speculated they have broken up. But I don't know. Like, I just don't trust anybody these days, whether it be in my personal life or especially on TV. I feel like a lot of people, especially, will show us things on social media just to get us talking, kind of say, oh, we've broken up, but they haven't broken up. And you kind of think about it in your own relationships, like especially back in high school and college, and how you would just play these stupid games and you'd be fine. But you know what I'm saying? Like we do these things, but social media takes it to the next level. And especially with our reality stars, which we'll get to an actual breakup with a story about Kristen Cavallari in 1 second, but hats off to the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. If you haven't, go back and check out the episode I did with 4 of them. Like 3 weeks ago, and I hope to talk to more of them. I think some of them might be coming on still. I don't know if that's going to be able to happen now since that they started filming again. But hey, put the good vibes in the air, folks. Okay, and now we will get a little darker, but I'm glad justice is being served in this. Matthew Perry, unfortunately passed away this past year, and his doctor, one of the doctors involved in this, has pled guilty in regards to the circumstances surrounding this. So it's Dr. Mark Chavez, and his lawyer, Matthew Benninger, says Mark has accepted responsibility for his actions by entering his guilty plea. He is cooperating with the government, and he's begun the process to surrender his medical license. The factual basis from the plea agreement will be used as the basis for the medical board to issue a complaint against him requesting the surrender of his license. We will agree with that conclusion, and at that point, his license will be revoked. I cannot give you an exact timeline about when that will happen because it is up to the medical board, but the wheels are in motion, and now that the guilty plea has been entered, it should happen sooner than later. So does this mean this guy can still practice in the meantime? Now, he passed away from ketamine. And Dr. Mark Chavez is one of the two physicians that were busted in this case. And he appeared in front of a federal court this Wednesday and pled guilty to one count of conspiracy to distribute ketamine. He quickly cut a deal with the feds after a bunch of arrests in this case were made, and he has now entered this plea. He is facing up to 10 years in prison. Making this plea, I'm sure, will help with how many years he's going to receive, but his sentencing won't happen until next April. Chavez remains free on a $50,000 bond, and he's already surrendered his passport and agreed not to. Okay, so he's agreed not to work as a doctor. Chavez was on the receiving end of an email from one of the other charged suspects, Dr. Salvador Plasencia, which read, quote, "I wonder how much this moron will pay for the ketamine." Wow. I mean, that just just think, that's the heartbreaking thing. And it just always goes to show you, I always talk about aspirational and, like celebrities, these people, and we look up at we look up to them, and maybe we've gotten a little wiser and realized it's not so aspirational to be these people. I really highly recommend everybody read Matthew Perry's autobiography. And there is nothing aspirational about his life. I mean, his career was aspirational, but the struggle that was going on within him that entire time will break your heart. And then it's just like this man was a millionaire, like a multi-millionaire. And we have people like these asshole doctors that are supposed to protect you and heal, saying something like, "I wonder how much this moron will pay." I wonder, this was actually in it. I wonder, and then he dies. Dr. Chavez is one of the three who took plea deals in Matthew's case, joining Matthew Perry's assistant, Kenneth Iwamasa, and Eric Fleming, who prosecutors say helped broker the drug deals. Now, Perry's assistant, Kenneth, he was having to help Matthew Perry inject it. He knew, and I mean, I'll be curious the first interview with this gentleman, because you have to imagine, and if you've dealt with an addict in your life, that pleading and that trying to barter with them of like, okay, if you do it this time, you'll promise you won't do it again. And, it truly is this illness. It truly is a disease. Gosh. So the two of these people, like I said, Dr. Plasencia and Jasveen Sangha, Sangha, AKA she's dubbed the ketamine queen, are fighting their charges and have each pled not guilty. So two people in this case are pleading not guilty, but the slew of other arrests and other guilty pleas will actually help work against Dr. Plasencia and Jasveen Sangha. And that is the stuff that you learn from studying cases like Diddy and Tom Girardi. This is what 4.5 years of doing this show is starting to teach me a little bit about the legal process, is that they're building that case. And don't worry, you guys, I've had a lot of requests for another Diddy episode, and there is a lot of stuff to cover. So I will be doing another special Diddy episode. There's nothing special about a Diddy episode, but there's a lot of stuff that is happening. And just this week, over 125 other victims have come forward through this one lawyer. And this lawyer is threatening big things, saying a lot of people are going to be revealed, a lot of celebrities, a lot of big wigs. There's a lot of names involved. 125 people have allegedly signed on to this legal matter that this gentleman did a press conference about the other day. So I'm kind of waiting for those names to start dropping before I update the case, but they are actually, shockingly enough, trying to get bail for Diddy a third time after the first two times failed. So heart, as always, goes out to Matthew Perry's family, and this is just so horrific. But I'm glad that people are going to pay for what they did to him or helped do to him. And then also, I wanted to mention that I finally finished Monsters, the Eric and Lyle Menendez story, and it was 9 episodes, and it's very Ryan Murphy. We've talked about him a lot on this show. I mean, there is nobody right now more prolific in terms of the amount of content that they're throwing our way, but you really have to kind of pick and choose what actually is worthy of viewing, because Monsters, I thought, had some really interesting moments and some, I mean, you've got to admit they use Milli Vanilli in this throughout the series, and I thought they use it to such great effect, and I was a little kid when Milli Vanilli came out, and I remember the lip syncing scandal. This is so funny, you guys. There used to be do you guys mind if I just talk? That's what we do. We just talk. We're not in a rush. There used to be this DJ that I loved as a kid named Casey Kasem. And this people will make fun of my voice a lot and be like, oh, especially on Jeff, they'll be like, oh, radio voice. It's just kind of my natural voice, but there is an affect I realize I do have. But Casey Kasem had the best. And I, as a kid, oh man, I should get my dad on here to talk about my case. I would go around and be like, hi, this is Casey Kasem with American Top 40. We've got a long distance dedication but it was even better when I was a kid because my voice hadn't changed yet. So it'd be like, this is Casey Kasem with American Top 40. And he was like the king of the airwaves. He did this like top 40 countdown every weekend. And they would do these long distance dedications where it'd be like, Martha writes, Dear Casey, I have 3 puppies and I love them all. Could you please play Blame It on the Rain by Milli Vanilli? Like, it was just so great. I loved it as a kid. But I remember he had Milli Vanilli on one time. I specifically remember this. And they spoke with such heavy accents. And even me, as a little kid, I remember thinking, is this a joke? There's no way they're like, hello, it's me, Milli Vanilli. What's going on? And it was so thick. And I wasn't worldly. I still am not worldly, but I mean, I was just like, how did those people that thick of an accent sing that beautifully? Because the first Milli Vanilli album, you guys, go stream it on Spotify. That thing still slaps. It is so good. And the Monsters TV show reminded me of that. Like I added it to my listen list of like re-listen to that first Milli Vanilli album. In fact, there's a good documentary on Paramount Plus with one of the guys from Milli Vanilli, because the other one unfortunately passed away, about his story. And he's actually a decent singer now. He's a really good singer. It was Rob and Fab, right? Those were their 2 names. But I just remember that. I was like, how do these it sounded like so heavy German that I was like, how are they singing so clearly? But I just kind of, it's like Jen Shaw, where I was like, well, I guess, that's they sing it. I just accepted it, but there were like a little spidey sense went off as a kid going, what's this? But Casey Kasem, love that guy, love Milli Vanilli. Monsters, on the other hand, like I said, there are these kind of amazing moments, and you're able to, like, if you lived through these cases. By the way, there's an episode where one of them is in a cell next to OJ Simpson. And I'm like, of course he is. Of course. And it turns out, like, every insane moment in Monsters where I'm like, Ryan Murphy up to his old antics again. This is crazy. This is so camp. And then I looked it up and I'd be like, oh, that actually happened. Oh, that could have potentially happened. But the big thing in Monsters is, and this is trigger warning, is it really kind of dives into them alleging that their father and their mother being aware, the father was sexually abusive towards the 2 sons. And just recently, the father actually signed Menudo. If you remember Menudo, that's where Ricky Martin came from. Signed Menudo. And one of the members of Menudo in the last 4 years came forward and said that Lyle and Eric Menendez father had sexually abused him 3 times. And this was the first, like, kind of almost thing of like another person saying, yeah, this man was sexually abusive to minors and to boys. And they are taking another look at the Eric and Lyle Menendez case. In fact, we should have a word if they're going to be able to get a retrial based on that and a letter that was found recently where I think it was Lyle wrote to his cousin that his dad was abusing him. And I don't know how this was found all of a sudden, but it could potentially reopen this case. Now, Ryan Murphy is, like the Jeffrey Dahmer thing I told you, I couldn't make it past the first episode. I just thought it's too much. I thought, all of the people involved, really high level acting, Niecy Nash and the gentleman who played Jeffrey Dahmer, like they're amazing artists, but I just like, what is the point? And sometimes with the Ryan Murphy, you kind of go, what is the point? Like with Glee, I'm like, hey, let's mash up songs, an a cappella group. I was in yeah, cool. But sometimes when it gets this darker, you just realize they're kind of hitting that dopamine thing where it's pop culture and true crime, that thing that we're all interested in. And sometimes it can be a bit much. So I watched the entire thing. And like I said, just such amazing performances. The two young guys playing Eric and Lyle, amazing. And then, I mean, you don't get better than the parents. Javier Bardem as the father. Javier Bardem is doing television now. I mean, this guy is just such a powerful actor. It blows me away. And I am curious sometimes when it gets around to Emmy voting, if they, if they'll be nominated or if the Academy will just be like, it's too campy. Also, Chloe Sevigny as the mom had a lot of really interesting scenes. I'm sure as an actor, it was very amazing to play. But the case itself is wild. I started like kind of Googling a bunch of things, just like I did after the Scott Peterson documentaries. Also, the Menendez brothers documentary on Netflix premieres, I think, this weekend. So I'm really interested to watch that as well. But I went and started Googling this thing because it really hinges on, were these kids being sexually abused, which led them, because they did admit they did kill their parents, but they killed their parents because they were being sexually abused and feared for their lives. Now, the other side of this, though, was the other argument was they were in it for $14 million. They were in it to not get written out of this, the dad's will. They were in it because they wanted to like be ballers and shot callers. So it's this kind of interesting debate. And I don't know necessarily where. I do think they were being abused there, but there's just a lot of different little elements. And the legal system, as much as, like I said, I'm learning, there's a lot that I just don't know at all. And just the fighting to keep certain actual facts out of cases really disturbs me, because there's all these pretrial motions that will keep actual facts that can really sway a jury, like these actual true things that happen, and the jury can't hear it because they've been properly argued in court by these really famous defense attorneys that are getting paid top dollar. And sometimes I don't really think that's justice being served. But I don't know. Emily D. Baker, go listen to her, go listen to the Bravo docket, go listen to all those great lawyer podcasts and YouTube channels. Man, I got to get Emily D. Baker back on, because now between this, Scott Peterson, and all the Bravo stuff, I am due for an Emily D. Baker conversation just to get into this, because it truly is intriguing. Have you guys watched it yet? And are you going to watch it? It's one of those things. There's like this 7-day window now with anything TV related. You got to get past that 7-day hump. And I think Monsters has done it because it's been out 2 weeks now, and it is still the #1 rated streaming show. So that's a good sign, but something's going to knock it off this weekend. It might be Love is Blind. Who knows? But I do recommend it, but I recommend it with a caveat. Like you can't, it's not something that you can binge all in one sitting. That's what I'll say. Yeah, that's what I'll say. Okay, 2 more stories and then we'll get to our guest. You know what it is? You get into these things and I just truly love to talk to you guys. I love to do this, and then I feel like, "Oh, I'm just gonna do a quick thing," and then it just turns into this because there's always so much to talk about. I just miss you guys talking back to me. Um, I just actually looked on Instagram, and it looks like Schwartz and Sandy's, they had a hump day party, and Mr. Jax Taylor was there. So Schwartz was posting with Jax, and guess who was DJing? Kyle Cook and Alex from Below Deck and Winterhouse, Alex Propson. He was there as well. So, woo, Jax is having quite a day. So, wait a sec. When he just wrote that to Queens of Bravo a couple hours ago, was he at Schwartz and Sandy's like angrily typing away? But now he's partying with Kyle. I want to see his text to Amanda Batula right now. Amanda going, get the F out of there right now. Okay, I promised you to talk about Kristen Cavallari. Now, Kristen Cavallari, of course, we love her and know her from Laguna Beach and the Hills. She recently revealed this past weekend that she is broken up with Mark Estes. They have called it quits. Now, Mark Estes, I think he was part of what little male, it's not a boy band, but it's like a TikTok brother band. Um, I don't know. I don't follow these guys, but I know they're big. And all of a sudden she was dating this guy, even though there was a big age difference, which I'm like, hell yeah. I mean, guys date younger girls all the time. Girls can do the same thing. She revealed at the Call Her Daddy live show on Friday, but then talked more in detail about it on her podcast, which I wasn't even aware she had a podcast. It's called Let's Be Honest with Kristen Cavallari. And this episode is entitled The Breakup. And she called Estes the best boyfriend she's ever had, but she confirmed that she is the one that initiated the breakup. And she says, it's hard because I broke up with Mark because I just know long term it's not right. The breakup was not because of love lost or something bad happened. No one cheated. No one was mean. Mark didn't do anything. Mark has been nothing but so sweet and so supportive, and he's always been there. She said the age gap did contribute to their breakup. She is 37 and he is 24. They've only been together 7 months. And she said, I just know long term he needs to experience life. He's young, and I started to feel the age a little bit just with life experience. Yeah, man, when you're 37, you can't go out pounding vodka Red Bulls with the boys. Like it gets a little old and boring, you know. Um, she says those are crucial years. Those are formative years. This is when you find yourself. He needs to be able to do that. She noted, however, that his age is something she has been well aware of. Yeah, I would imagine you've been well aware. We all told you. Quote, it wasn't like I was ignoring the fact that he was younger and really just got out of college. I was very aware of the situation. She called her time with Estes beautiful and the best relationship of my life. Quote, he will make someone so happy one day, she said tearfully. I know one day he will look back and he will understand it. And I actually think one day he will thank me. And that's just the hindsight you don't have at age 24. At age 24, it's so hard to think about the future. She says she does not regret going public with him nor introducing him to her children. She has 3 children with her ex, Jay Cutler. She looking ahead, she says she's optimistic, and she says her and Estes will remain friends, but that a post-breakup friendship can take time to develop. Quote, in order to be friends with someone after you split, I really think there needs to be some time between breaking up and coming together as friends. I think it's hard to be friends when there's still emotion involved. Um, that's I mean, it kind of makes it sound like potentially this dude's going through some heartbreak right now. Like if he is if he's 24 years old, he really does have a lot of living to do. And especially this kind of relationship with somebody older, not that this is probably this dude's first heartbreak, but remember your first like heartbreak. I mean, this is going to stay with him for decades. And she really set him up for other future amazing relationships, said nothing but nice things about him. I just am curious how he's feeling and when he's going to do an interview about it. But really interesting. And I thought everything she said, I thought was like on point. And I don't know enough about this relationship, nor did I follow it really because I'm so busy with the Bravo and all this other crap. But yeah, I just thought it was very interesting to speak positively, but also to make that decision for herself and just wondering where he's at emotionally. Cause like, is this really messing with his head? And especially that, it will take some time to develop that friendship. And like if I was him, that he'll thank me later quote would haunt me. Like I'll never thank her. I love her. I'm not ever going to thank her. And like wondering how many years from now he will thank her. I was thinking about that, this week. The perspective you get on your life when each decade is just so different. You guys know. And all of that shit that your parents told you, like there are so many things that my mom would tell me that I'd be like, you don't know. Like even stupid things like take care of your knees, make sure you take care of like this and that. And then you get to an age where you're like, God, yeah, she was telling me that for a reason. oh my God, you do got to get sleep. You do got to like all of these things because they were going through it. They were in an age where it's like, you got to realize your body starts falling apart at some time, at some point. But when you're young and dumb, you think you're going to live forever. So I thought that was interesting. Now, to end it with a very serious story, before we get to an amazing guest, and I will have to, I have to say, I sometimes hope when I have like a documentarian on or something, I hope they don't listen to the first parts because you're like, this person must be so confused about the show. And that's what I love about the show is that it's really a mashup of so many different things with a really kind of silly perspective. As much as I'm serious about things, I really like to be goofy. And like I said, this documentary kind of blew me away and really made me feel a lot of different things. And one was hope. So it's just funny. This next story, especially, please, sir, if you're listening, don't listen to this next one, but I got to talk about it. I saw this news story and I was like, I got to spread the word. Okay. Are you guys ready? This is so much darker than the Menendez brothers. The Daily Mail, the paper of note. This is the headline. Will Smith farting on set caused film crew to be evacuated for 3 hours, director claims. And I was like, Daily Mail, you had me at farting. What? Will Smith, most recently known for the slap with Chris Rock and some other things. Well, he did this film series called Men in Black. I think a lot of us remember it. Director Barry Sonnenfeld directed the first one. I think the second one. This director, this was 1997. He filmed this first movie. And Barry Sonnenfeld recently claimed that the Oscar winner once broke wind so severely that an entire film set had to be evacuated for 3 hours. This is my favorite part of the article. DailyMail.com has reached out to Will Smith's representatives for comment on the matter. Can you imagine being Will Smith's publicist this last couple of years? And then finally, like this, like say they've survived this entire upheaval of this man's career. And then today is the breaking point for the publicists. They're like, fuck, we just got to ask to comment on a farting story. I can't do this anymore. Okay, so per the director's recollection, the incident took place when Smith and co-star Tommy Lee Jones, who's an amazing actor, but I hear he's like a world-famous grump, they were in a transforming car that required them to be hermetically sealed in a pod. He explained, quote, there are locks to prevent it from opening and falling. I say, roll camera, and I hear Will Smith go, oh, Jesus, so sorry, Tommy, so sorry. So sorry, Baz. Get the ladder. Get the ladder. And Barry says, and you hear Tommy saying, that's fine, Will. No worries, Will. Don't worry, Will. And Barry says, anyway, I don't know what's gone on, right? He went on to say, so we raced the ladder over. Tommy Lee Jones reaches his leg out as the ladder is coming over, races down the stairs. And what happened was Will Smith is a farter. It's a direct quote from Barry Sonnenfeld. Will Smith is a farter. He continues, it's just some people are. It's just that some people are. And you really don't want to be inside a very small, hermetically sealed space with a Will Smith fart. By the way, Will, if you really wanted to mess with Chris Rock, you should have gotten him in a hermetically sealed space. Another quote, he says, you don't even want to be sitting next to him at the Disney Ranch, he emphasized. Oh, he made these comments on Kelly Ripa's podcast, Let's Talk Off Camera. Why am I not getting these interviews where I get to talk about Will Smith farts? Do I got to be at Kelly Ripa's stature of career to be able to get these hard-hitting interviews? Anyways, don't feel bad. The movie was the highest grossing movie of 1997, raking in $584 million. But this man is a dangerous weapon with the slaps and the gas. I mean, you just got to be careful around this Will Smith. Okay, folks, we did it. We did it. This was your pop culture roundup for Thursday. And now we have this amazing director that I hope you will stay here for. I really thought this was a very special documentary and a very special interview, especially because of my dad's love and my love of the Beatles and John Lennon. And that's it. I hope you guys are great. Please, if you would consider, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. That is so helpful. I also want to recommend my friend Sophie Ross, her new pod, Snarkbait, which we talked about on Monday. And also my coworker and friend Maritza Lopez has a podcast called Love is Latino, covering Love is Blind Mexico. So I would like to recommend those two podcasts. Share the wealth. We want as many podcasts to do as good as possibly can. And that's it. I hate to say goodbye, but I'll talk to you guys on Friday for the Salt Lake recap and Saturday for the OC recap. Here we go. Here's an amazing director of the documentary Daytime Revolution.